Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to another episode of Successful Witches, our podcast where we are obsessed with all things indie romance, with spice, with smut, with the ultimate must-have accessory of happily ever after. I'm your host, Elliot Rose. I write spicy paranormal romance, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our beautiful guest this week, who is an incredible indie romance author. Join me in welcoming J.A. Jude to the podcast this week. We are talking all about her debut novel, Supernova, which is a closed-door, spicy, swoon-worthy paranormal romance. I cannot wait for you to join us with this episode. It was so much fun. Welcome on in to J.A. Jude. Hello, my beautiful. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us on Successful Witches. I am so thrilled. We have just been talking before we press record for this episode about, it feels like we've known each other for a while because we've been all up in each other's DMs for ages now. And so this is a real treat to get to actually finally sit and chat. So welcome on in. Thank you so much for joining us. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here, darling.
You. I'm so excited. It like you said, literally feels like we've known each other. So this is just so nice to actually talk.
Yeah. And it's also quite nice, a nice treat for me as well to get to talk to someone who is a little bit closer to home. Because obviously, even though I love the fact that we are this big international community of authors, of indie romance authors that get to kind of connect very, very effortlessly, it suddenly becomes so much easier when we're actually talking same hemisphere, same time zones ish.
Yeah. Well, when I got the reminder and it was in the US time zone, I'm like, what was that?
Yeah. It's not even a thing.
Yeah, literally. It's so crazy. It's so nice. I'm actually shocked at how big the community in Australia and New Zealand actually is. Once Bookstagram and Book Talk, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many Australians that love books, and I would never have thought it. When you're just walking down the street, you don't think that person could be secretly reading every single book that I'm obsessed with, and you just don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? And I've really seen, it took me forever to find, it felt like forever to find anyone who was in this part of the world at all on Book Talk or Bookstagram. But just within the last few months, it seems to have really exploded in a big way. And I've obviously managed to somehow get into the right algorithm or something that now I'm starting to meet more and more people who are actually a little bit closer to home, which is really, really nice as well. Because as much as I just adore all of my readers and everyone all around the world, it is kind of nice to know that you're not only talking to people elsewhere, that you can actually build a bit of a connection with people locally.
Yeah, and we all go through the same problems and issues that America and Canada and the rest of the world probably don't deal with, our ridiculous shipping prices and how hard to actually get our hands on some books. So it's so nice to talk to people that are dealing with the same issues.
Yeah, I know. I was having to keep my reader group kind of informed on when I was getting my print proofs just recently, and I just ended up having to show a Google Maps of where it was coming from, even within Australia, to get to me here in the South Island of New Zealand. It was the epic voyage of my print proofs. It's just,
I love that.
It's hard to kind of, I think, without showing people, it's quite hard to kind of conceptualize how far away everything is, because especially in Australia as well, that there is an enormous difference between being based in Sydney and being based in Perth, and it is so hard to explain.
It is we're bigger than we think as well. It is crazy. I love that your books went on a little journey to get to you.
Oh, they've been on such a journey. So anyway, we are obviously here to talk all about your book, your author career, your absolute magical world that you have brought to life and started sharing. But I do love to go back to kind of where it all started for everyone who comes on the show before we start swooning over all the goodness and all the magic, which, don't worry, that is coming. And we all have such unique paths to get to this stage of publishing books, self-publishing, indie romance particularly. So for everyone watching or listening in, can you share how and when and like where did it all start for you on your indie romance author journey?
Yeah, okay. It's such like a long, like, I'm like, I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, where did this start? Like, first of all, it's so crazy to even hear someone say, oh, your book and like your author journey. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that's not me. But like, it's so crazy. I don't know. I've always loved reading. Like, I've been one of those kids that definitely loved reading because I was definitely more of a quiet kid. So I was very artistic. I was like always drawing. And then when I found books, I was reading. And my mum used to take me to the library all the time. And I did like MS Readathon and like all those things. I like loved it. And then I think when I got into like year 7 at high school, we had this really great librarian. And like I think in one of our English classes, she made us like sit down and like write all this, like fill out like a little form about the type of books we were interested in. And I didn't really read like too much at that time. Like I read, but like I didn't have like a specific genre or anything like that. I just kind of read whatever I could find at my school. And this librarian like just found some books for me that like were incredible. Like I was like mind blown that this is how like amazing some books are. And like I think it was like a romance mystery and like an old house type thing. Like it was really cool at that age. At like 13, I was like, this is crazy. And then like definitely got into like romances and stuff from that age. And like I just like kept, like other kids in my like class and stuff didn't really like love this like little part of our English class, but like I was obsessed and like kept going back, kept getting more books from her. And I think that really started my like reading journey. And then in terms of like writing, I think that kind of just came along with that. Like I said, I was quite creative. So I enjoyed like all the writing sort of stuff that we did in school, like whether it was like creative or whether it was persuasive, those two are my faves. I like loved it, and like would just like keep typing away, like way past the word count, like just couldn't stop myself. And like, yeah, loved it. I remember in like, I think I was like 15, I wrote this like random story for English that was like about some long lost twins. And like my teacher was like, this sounds like something from like Gossip Girl, like it's so good. And I was like, oh wow, like maybe one day I'll like actually write a story, like a full book. And so like I had this idea from when I was like 15, and then I kind of grew out of it a bit. I kind of thought maybe I'll be like a journalist, or I was very like torn between my art and my writing. So I was like, do I want to do journalism? Do I want to do like graphic design? I couldn't pick. And I kind of went down interior design, graphic design sort of pathway. So I finished school with that. And then by the time school finished, I kind of stopped reading. I don't think I was reading as much. I think I read like the Fallen books by like Lauren Kate, and like that was kind of it. And then got into uni and started training it in. So then I just started reading again, and I just went crazy. Like I had my iPad and I would like get everything on Kindle, and like, oh, it was crazy. Like was reading so much, and then kind of fell out of it again. And then I think in COVID, I kind of started again. Like I had all this free time, and so started reading again. And I think I kind of started on like those random little like good novel books that like it was like advertised to me on Facebook, like hooked me straight away. And I was like, oh, okay. I went in, spent all this money buying like points and like getting through this like, and it was like a wolf shifter romance. And I was like, oh my God, like I love.
Yeah.
And then I need more of like these type of books. Like I already loved supernatural stuff. Like I was like the biggest Vampire Diaries fan, like Twilight, everything that was supernatural with romance was all me. Like need the romance part of it, otherwise I can't do it. But loved all that. So when I read my first like wolf shifter romance, I was like, this is so me. Can't even like, couldn't pick something better. And then I started searching for like those type of books, and I found Jaime and Eve's Shadow Beast Shifters. And that for me was like what solidified my love for reading again, like as an adult, just fully got me back into it. And by the time I finished that, I was like, you know what? I really want to write. Like I really want to bring a world that is mine together. And I want to write characters that like I just love and that are relatable to me. And I was just like, yeah, but I kind of never thought that I would do it, you know? And then I think I just started, I think one day I just wrote a scene. I just like randomly had like an idea pop in my head, and I just like sat and like quickly wrote it on my phone in my notes. And it was like chapter 6 in my book, like there's like a scene where she's like running, and I was like, yep, write it down. And from there I was like, okay, so why is she running? Like, what is she running from? Who is she? Started like going crazy on interest in finding who my characters would be. And then that kind of started my whole journey. I kind of gave them like a little character profile each, and wrote like, I looked yesterday through like my notes of like what the start of my book was, and like the little like, okay, maybe she does this, or maybe she does that. And like at the start, it was very much like, okay, like I want her to find like the perfect boy. Like he's just like too good to be true, like perfect boy. And so yeah, I kind of started writing it around that, but you know, wanted a little bit of spice and a bit of a twist. So then kind of just dotted down all these ideas, and then I think I left it for a little bit, and then randomly one day just started writing again, and then it became something that I just did. And like I think when I was like younger, I would write like journal entries when like I'd be like really sad or stressed or anything like that, but I'd write them in the perspective as if I was like from a book. So like that kind of, I think, already like established my like love for writing. And so I kind of actually started to create this world and started to write. Like it kind of just all happened. It was all like pouring out of me, but like I didn't like I wouldn't sit and just like write for like days straight. It'd be like very sporadic. And then yeah, that kind of took me to the last like year and a half, I would say, where I would start to actually like fully write this book. And I was very much writing like random scenes here and there, whatever would just like pop into my mind. And then early this year, I think February, I quit my job. I quit it to like pursue my art stuff, but like I was writing at the same time, and my book was kind of very much like something I was writing for me. But if I like, not if I liked it, if I ever finished it, I was like, I'll publish it anyway, because if anyone likes it, if anyone like, you know, relates to these characters or loves the world, like that would just make me so happy. Like it could be one person, just, but like if I've written it, I might as well share it. So yeah, when I quit my job, I then had time and I got really into it. I finished the rest of the book. I pieced everything together. I did all the editing. I did my own covers. I did everything, and I kind of just put it all together. And I think before that, I saw like a live with Jane and Eve, and she was talking about indie publishing. And I knew that I'm not the type of person to be able to go and like send people my work and be like, oh, like you're a publisher, would you like publish my thing? Like, I don't think I could deal with how raw that is and like the rejection of it. So I knew that like if I was to publish it, I'd be indie publishing. So yeah, that was kind of my journey. And then I just like watched a few different like lives and Q&As with different indie authors, and I was like, yeah, this definitely seems like it's for me. Like I like being in control and have that whole like yeah, control over the whole creative process. And yes, did all my research, and now I have a book.
She's out in the world, and she's beautiful, and she's gorgeous. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I love that that was something you did weigh up as well, right? That you did do the kind of research, because I think as well, like there's a lot of myths and I guess like preconceptions about indie publishing or self-publishing that, you know, it's only for people who can't get accepted by a publisher, or it's only for this, you know, it's all this kind of bullshit stuff, right? Like that we are smashing those like preconceptions and old ways of thinking left, right, and center. And like indie romance particularly is just like skyrocketing in terms of what people are able to do, how they're able to retain that creative control, how they're able to market and distribute and publish their work in any number of different ways. I mean, it just has opened the door to so many more stories being able to be told. And exactly like you say, that for someone like yourself, who is an all-round artistic, creative person, like that creative autonomy is important, you know, and is a huge part of the process. Because yeah, like in the past, there were writers who just literally wanted to write the book and have nothing to do with the rest of the process. Yeah. Right?
I'm
like
sure that
nothing.
would be nice in a way. I'm like, that'd be easy. Like I wish that I didn't so hung up on things, but also I couldn't.
Yeah, like it really is fascinating, isn't it, to think that, you know, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that you would virtually have a situation. And I mean, social media has also created this whole new landscape, right? That you can be the author who is also the face, the brand, the, you know, the artistic director, the everything for your vision coming to life. Whereas in the past, you know, I was trying to explain, there was someone I was talking to the other day who is very not in the book world. And I was trying to explain the whole concept of these massive, massive book signing events that now happen specifically for romance, you know, and indie romance and, you know, all of these things. And I was trying to explain it, how, you know, compared to years ago when we used to have maybe our favorite authors, but you would never see them, you would never hear from them, you would never know anything about them other than maybe a handful of like curated articles here and there, or, you know, whereas now we get that ability to literally be on social media as much as we desire, or as little as we desire equally, but we can very much be our own champions for our work. And that for you, as someone who is the artist as well as the writer as well as the designer, like that's huge, right?
I think it's much more personable as well, like, or hopefully, like at the start I was very like hesitant to like show my face, and like I was very much like hiding, and I was like, oh, like I think I'll just be someone who, like, people don't really know who I am, like they can just kind of put like their own imagination behind it and make me whoever they want. But like as I was going, I'm like, but I like do so much of the stuff myself that I feel like I want people to have that like personal touch with me and be able to like talk to me, and like, you know, like we can like connect over things and help each other, and like that's much more, it's much more easier when there's a face behind it.
Yeah. And obviously exactly what you've said, that you are the artist as well. And that's something I'm really curious about, because these two, I guess, like creative expression forms, writing and art in any shape or form, they are not quick and simple processes. Like they are both they are both labors of love in many ways. And how do you find balancing the two? Because I am forever in awe of, there's quite a few authors that I've connected with and follow who are similar to you, that you design your own artwork, covers, everything. You're doing your own character art, you're doing character art of other books and inspiration as well. Like, how the fuck do you have enough time, for starters? And secondly, like how, yeah, I'd just love to know how that feels like creatively for you, going between the two. Like, give us all the tea.
Okay. First of all, send me these other authors that do it all, because I need to be inspired and I need to see how they're doing it as well. Because personally, I don't think I'm doing, like, I don't think I have like a good balance at all.
It's like, balance? What is that? What is that word?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely tricky. Sometimes I'm just like, why do I do this to myself? Because it's so hard. Like I don't have one that I love more than the other. I think for the writing, I need to be in a set mood. Like I'm very much a mood writer, whereas the drawing I can kind of do at any time. So it's hard to balance it. Like I think I go through stages where I'll kind of focus on one a little bit more. So when I first like started this journey, I focused on the book and wanted that to be completely finished. And that meant that my art was probably on hold for a little bit. Like I still would do it, but it would very much be like in the evenings when me and my husband are sitting down watching something and I might not be that interested in it, or I just would rather draw. So I would sit there while we're watching something together and I would just like draw. So that would be like my hobby more so.
Yeah.
And the writing was very much what I was focusing on. And then once I finished the book and went through all my edits and did all the crazy stuff, I was like, okay, well, I want the art for my book to be my own art. Like I love other artists, and I wish that I could have also like, you know, used some of them and like worked with them, but also I just quit my job, so I didn't have money. Like my husband was supporting us. I was like, I literally have to do everything as cheap as possible. And also like it felt really beautiful to me to be like, my book is like wholly my book. It's like every essence of me poured out into it. So I knew that I wanted to do my own covers. And I think I started about I started drawing before I finished the book, and I would like really, really slowly work on it, because obviously for me, like I was like, I'm like a perfectionist. So I was like, I need the cover to be like perfect. It's gonna take me forever to do. And then I finished the book and I was like, oh well, now the cover needs to be finished. So then I was like, okay, switching to the art side, let's finish this cover, and then do all the design parts. And then I was like, you know what, like I really want work in my book. Like I want to have the characters in my book. I've always had only like hardcovers that had that. And I was like, I really want my paperback to have that, so that people who like don't like hardcovers or maybe can't afford the hardcovers can still get the art. Like that was like a really important factor for me. So then I was like, oh great, Janice, now like start drawing your characters. And yeah, that was like a whole other, yeah. Then we had to like focus on that. So then I paused all my drawing of other people's book characters and the books that I loved and all that. That. And yeah, but I would say that my general sort of thing, as much as I kind of try to stick to it, doesn't always happen like this, but I probably write more during the day now. I find that if I write at night, my brain doesn't turn off and I can't sleep. And the second I close my eyes, I'm imagining scenes, and then I have to get out of bed and start typing them out. So
very relatable.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
Oh, honestly, I'm such a like, I can't stop. And like when like I have really vivid dreams, so like I'll dream about them and I won't like sleep properly because I'm like so like my brain is working in my dream.
Yeah.
So try to keep the writing mostly during the day, and then I do a lot of my drawing in the evenings, and then don't really do much else. It's writing and drawing, and then occasionally like, you know, I think my weekends are very much for like my friends and like socializing and everything, which I often don't want to do because then I'm like, I want to read now. When can I read? But I'm like, well, if I go out with my friends and stuff, I have things to write about in my books.
Yeah,
So,
the like tangible lived experience.
100%. Yeah. So I'm like, no, I guess we got to go out now, but it's good. It gives me like a good escape. It's like, it's definitely a lot, but like it's stuff that I love. And compared to like everything that I've worked in the past, like I always just didn't feel satisfied with any of my jobs and that stuff. So I like can't complain. I'll take it. Like I love it. So it's okay.
Yeah, it is. It's that funny thing, isn't it? That we like put ourselves intentionally through this very torturous, like, you know, long form artistic creative expression, but we also at the same time are like, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why we do it to ourselves, but it's worth it at the end, I think.
Yeah. And of course, like you say, that you've been able to bring your character, not only your characters to life, but like you've been able to do that for your book, which is something that is so fucking cool to be able to include that within the book itself. And you're so right that, you know, so often we only see these things included in like special editions or hardcovers, or, you know, or even like I'm thinking like the sort of limited book box type things, you know. So this is a really beautiful way that you're able to share something at a level that is like anyone who wants your book can have this.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it was very important to me. So I'm glad that I managed to make it happen, even though it pushed like, I mean, that's, I guess, the beauty of being an indie author as well. Like, you don't really have deadlines. I mean, they're all sort of self-made. But like, I expected my book to be finished by the end of the year. Like, when I would talk to my friends about it, I'd be like, yeah, end of the year, like last year. And then the start of the year, I was like, oh, still got a lot to go. So, and yeah, and then it got to like, I think it was like March, and I was like, okay, like I really thought my book would be out by now, but then like I did all the drawing, so it pushed it back from like where I imagined it to be. But I mean, I'm on my own timeline, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I have a friend of mine who's kind of like my sounding board for a lot of like my characters and things like that. And I think we were having a conversation about that when it was getting close to one of my deadlines, and I was basically just, you know, moaning about my own self-imposed.
Yes.
It's like, and I think at the end of the message, I was like, and I am fully aware that I've done this to myself. So, you know, like, I have full self-awareness that this is self-imposed.
Mm-hmm. Like, you need to have some sort of timeline, because you don't want to just like put it off forever. Like, it's good to have that goal, but then we do stress ourselves out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can have all the time in the world, and there will always be this certain window of time when everything starts to
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously we want to talk about Supernova, but just on that note of like the kind of writing and how your creativity comes to you, are you, because this is book 1 in a series, the Grey Knights series. So have you already started making progress onto the other books, or have you kind of given yourself that breathing room of this one coming to completion, and now we're going to have a bit of like time to percolate on things?
Well, I think I published the ebook in April and then the paperback in June. So once I finished the ebook, I kind of breathed for a little bit, and I was like, I'll get the paperback done, but like I also need to like kind of step back from it just a tad. And so like I still was doing stuff, but I think during that time I kind of shifted to my art for a little bit. And then yes, I took that time. And then after June, I don't know, like when you're doing both as well, you kind of feel a bit lost when you finish one. Like I felt so weird finishing my book. I was like, what do I do now? Like I know I have more, but like it just feels so weird. Like I was working on it so hard in those few weeks, like 4 hours I ever thought. And then it was like finished. And I'm like, now what? I gave myself a bit of like a break, but now we are fully working on book 2 and book 3. I've like, so it's supposed to be three books in the series. But you never know, I could end up doing more. There is like a possible spin-off that I might do, so we'll see how that goes. But like knowing how long they take me, it's going to be a long time. But yeah, I'm definitely a bit different with the next book. Like, so with Supernova, it was very much, like I said, mood writing. But now that like there's like a, you know, like a plot, like a full plot that's now established, I'm like, well, I kind of have to play out the. So I think that's a bit of a struggle when I was first kind of going to book 2, because I was like, well, what's going to happen now? Like I need to make sure everything matches up and like syncs together. So I was a bit stuck, and I was like, okay, like maybe I just step away from it for a bit. But then I was kind of not coming back to it. And then I forced myself to like sit and like brainstorm. And like my mom is like my biggest like help with my book. Like she loves reading too. So like my husband's not a book person at all. So like I'll go to my mom's house and I'll sit with her and we'll just like brainstorm. Or like I'll call her and we'll just talk about things. So that's what I did. Like I already had a bit of a brainstorm, and then I called mom and I was like, okay, so this and this and this is going to happen, and I'm thinking this could happen. And she's like, oh my God, that's going to happen? Oh, it's like so cool. She's like, I love that twist. And yeah, so book 2 and 3 have now been like essentially fully planned out, obviously with room to do my creative thing. And I had like little parts of book 2 that I had written while writing Supernova, and either they didn't fit for Supernova or I knew that they were going to be for book 2. And so like it was good that I had those little elements and I was kind of able to work on them. But I'm definitely doing things more linear with book 2 and kind of starting from the start. Whereas book 1, oh cool, and then let's write the ending, like the epilogue, and then let's like work backwards.
Your brain just was like jumping all over the place. But I think that's probably more common than we realize as creatives and as writers, particularly when we're doing something for the first time, right? Like our brain is trying to bring this storyline together or these characters together. And once we've done sort of the first one, then it sort of solidifies so many things. And in this case, because this is a trilogy of books about the same characters as well, you know, like we're seeing the same characters book after book. So there is a lot more that needs to kind of go into planning their bigger arc and journey. And like, and there is no shortcutting as well, that if you're writing about more than just like, say, a couple, like there are literally more moving pieces. Like the more people you add in,
Yeah.
there are more moving pieces, more people you've got to get into the head of, more characters you've got to start to flesh out. And so for those who aren't familiar, this is we have our beautiful V, who is our female main character, and we have our two very swoony male main characters. We have Riv and Griffin, and holy shit, if Griffin is not like the ultimate, like, yes, I would fall for that book boyfriend every time. Like,
I love that.
Like he's the ultimate, like he comes across initially, at least, as like he's the bad boy. He's the, like, you know, dark, mysterious character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't help but fall for him.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway. It's funny though, because like I've talked to like a few people and they're like so Team River, which is great. Like I love to see it, but they like hate Griffin. And I'm like, how can you hate him? Like it's fine. It's like, you know.
Yeah. So this is again, like, because we don't want to spoil the book too much for anyone who hasn't read it, but we're talking like love triangle situation here, right? Like we've got we've got like, I don't know, for me, I came away feeling like almost the way I wanted to describe it was like the vibes of Twilight mixed with Divergent. Like that's how it felt. That's how it felt for me. It like had that real kind of sense of like the love triangle of Twilight, but we also have the like gritty training ground, like compound lifestyle of Divergent. Like yeah
100%. Like I couldn't have said that better myself. It's definitely that. Like it's so initially for me, it started, so it's set in upstate New York. Well, it starts in upstate New York, but like I knew that I wanted New York City to be like where it's like based. So I had to find a way to like make that happen. But it very much starts in like a perfect little like town that's like literally like the start of a rom-com, like a Netflix rom-com. It's very like sets the scene of how they're like the it couple and like perfect boy, perfect town. Like V's like been, so she's like the daughter of an army mom and she's like moved around her whole life, but like for the last, I can't remember how many years it is, but she's like finally settled in this town and it's like the best thing ever for her. But like I also wanted there to be a sense of like it's too perfect. But yeah, like initially River, like I was like, oh, okay, cool, like I've got River, he's like the perfect boy, he's literally just like the guy everybody loves, and like I loved that about him. And I was like, okay, cool, like I'll just throw in like a little bit of like a darker character, like a little bit of your bad boy. And I had no idea how much of a role he was going to play for Griffin, how much of a role he was going to play in this whole thing. And then it kind of just started writing itself. And I was like, cool, so it's a full-fledged love triangle now. And I love it.
Yeah. And we also have, I guess, like for, again, like not to spoil it, but we end on a cliffhanger for book one. So while we have a whole journey that these characters go on in book one, we also don't have any kind of like resolution of things. If anything, we just have like the continuation of the ups and downs and the twists, like before we get to the end of book one. So it is going to be, I'm assuming it is going to be that sort of like throughout the trilogy, but we're working our way towards a happily ever after, but it's like you've got to go through the ringer with the characters to get there.
You do. It's like, honestly, like one of my cousins like read it, and at the end, like we're both very similar in that we're like nervous little stress balls who overthink things. And like I want that to be very apparent in Venus, because like I feel like a lot of the characters that I had been reading were very strong women, and I was like, well, what about the ones that make stupid mistakes and like, you know, might be a bit dramatic, but like they can't turn off their brain? And so my cousin's very much like that as well. And when she finished it, like how stressful. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a journey. I will say that from what I've got planned so far, it could change, but from what I've got planned so far, I think the love triangle part will be sorted in book 2. And then book 3 will have its own sort of complications and finish off the rest of the plot that's going on. So yeah, hopefully. But like my
and so like if you can you tell everyone a little bit about this Grey Knights kind of world with like the series and the characters? Because we've got the supernatural, we've got the paranormal, we've got, you know, the like world building that needs to go into this kind of like, I guess it's like you could call it like urban fantasy or like urban PNR type setting.
I find it really hard to like define, but I think that's I think that
so we've got like River, we were just talking about, who is like the golden boy. Like I was getting very like almost wanted to say like a kind of a goody version of like Chris Hemsworth sort of vibes. Like he's like the perfect sort of, you know, like beautiful like specimen of boyfriend material.
Yeah, I love Chris Hemsworth is great, so I'll take it.
Yeah. And he is like alpha character, right? Like so he's kind of not only is like someone who is this very like, you know, golden boy type character, but he's in a role that is like a position of power. Like
yeah. Well, yeah, he's an alpha. He's a so he's a wolf shifter. And he's the alpha of this pack that Venus has somehow found herself intertwined with. And yeah, like I wanted that to be like, even though he is an alpha, he's not an alpha whole. He's like a good alpha. He's like a good leader, and like everyone respects and loves him. And that just like adds to his whole persona of being this like perfect boy, like the ideal boyfriend, the ideal alpha, the ideal everything. Like, but yeah, that's him essentially.
And then V, like, well, when we first meet her, she's just like, I'm regular old human.
And she's very insecure about it as well. Like
so she knows about like wolf shifters and things, but she's also like, well, I'm just like regular old like plain Jane, nothing special about me.
Literally, she's very like insecure about how she's like surrounded by these like amazing supernatural creatures, these like wolf shifters in her very mundane world, and she is just very mundane. And she's like living sort of like a double life, like her family and stuff and everyone around them don't know that wolf shifters exist, but she's been like initiated into this pack essentially. And like she's like hiding this from her family, and she's like living with them, and then back home, and like it's a pretty interesting little thing that she's got going on. And I mean, like, what girl, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, I'm like, I'd love to be initiated into a wolf pack even if I was a human. Thank you. Like I'm waiting.
Yeah, sign me up.
Literally sign me up.
And so she's like regular old human, but that kind of doesn't continue for too long.
No, it doesn't. Essentially, something happens in her life that kind of turns everything upside down, and I guess through that she finds out that her mum's actually not an army person, but she's a part of this supernatural society of hunters, and that is the Grey Knights. So she finds out that, like, I guess she's not like a normal human. She's got this like higher purpose if she chooses to follow it, and for certain reasons she does. And she then finds herself in New York City, where she's thrown into this world of the Grey Knights, which are essentially like a group of supernatural hunters. It's kind of based off a lot of like little things, and like there's elements of it with like their sort of powers that they somewhat have, that reminds me of like the hunters, like the 5 in Vampire Diaries, but then they're also not that, and they're very like they're quite human, but they're not human. Like it's a tough one, but they were created to essentially like restore balance in the earth, because their wolf shifters existed and they needed something to kind of rival that and keep them in check, I guess. And so this army-like society was created, and Yeah, they like, I guess their goal, their mission is to keep the humans safe from the supernatural. And yeah, so V finds herself in a position where she joins them and decides that that's what she wants to do as well. And yeah, it's a big journey. It's a journey of her, like, I guess, finding herself and yeah, finding a place that she belongs, even though she did feel like she belonged with the wolves. Something was always kind of missing there. And yeah, so the Grey Knights is this like cool underground hidden, not like physically underground, it's in like a cool warehouse in New York City, and they're all like crazy badass hunters that like love to wear black and like don't follow any rules, but also kind of do. And yeah, they're really fun. Like I think that like sense of like found family in them is really cool. But yeah, there's like a lot there that will hopefully unfold with them as well. But yeah, so it's kind of the wolf shifters versus the supernatural hunters.
Yeah, and that's where our delicious bad boy Griffin comes in, because he
Yes.
is a hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah, but he's not just any old hunter, is he?
No, so he's quite, I don't know like how much I say, but like
Yeah. He's again, should we just say like he's got a like elevated position, or like a position of like responsibility, shall we
He
say?
essentially
Yeah.
he's like a captain
Yeah.
of the Grey Knight. So he's got an elevated responsibility. He's very much involved in training.
Yeah. Which is just like a trope that like every time it's so good. Like he has to train her. Like, yeah.
Yeah. She essentially gets him to give her some extra lessons, which is like a big part of the book.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
They're
Forced proximity ensues. Yeah.
yeah, that's essentially, yeah, that's Griff. And he's just got like a very mysterious but like magnetic persona, I guess, that draws you in. And like there's like a bit of a soft side to him that you like get to see, but like he's mostly this like cocky, quiet, but also really flirty guy. He's a very like he's just, yeah, he's a bit of a bit of a, I don't know, he's just like likable, he's just desirable.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate kind of like he's got the broody bad boy thing going, but he's also quite um like I don't know, he's not shy. Like he's not gonna be, because you know we all know we love the like book characters that like don't say anything for like most of the book.
Yeah.
But he's like right from the start has got that kind of like cheeky mouthy sort of like self-expression going on.
Literally. And he brings it out in her as well. Like I think she's very much like a quiet, timid, like sort of girl, but with him and in this place she kind of isn't. She definitely comes out of her shell and she's like confused at it. Like she'll like question it and be like, was I like this before? I don't know.
Yeah, which is kind of cool as well. Like, you know, you can see that she's growing through this experience, because like when we first meet her, like back in chapter 1, she's sort of reflecting on the fact that she's kind of been in this sort of relationship like with the good guy boyfriend, you know, like from being like in her, you know, mid-teens. Like
she meets River when she's in like middle school, which is probably like 12, 13, and then like they're like best friends, they're like everyone kind of ships them, and then they get together, and she's been with him since she was I think 15, she was like I think it was like crush at 15, and then she starts dating him in like her late teens, and now she's like early 20s. So she's kind of he's been in her life her whole life, so she's not been exposed to much else, and then she's thrown into the deep end and exposed to Griff, and it's like, okay, there's definitely others out there.
Yeah, and I think that's really like it's really beautifully portrayed that she gets that growth as well, like independently of the guys, because it is that thing, right? That, you know, she's obviously been in that sort of small town, very kind of like pack environment, right? So it's like she's
so soft.
and now she's suddenly got this like world around her, and also like the other female characters that are around her are very strong and like confident and kind of are helping her to like develop in her own way as well. Yeah. And now we have to obviously talk about the fact that like because everyone's like, I guess, way that we're going to write about like characters and spice levels and things like that. So I mean, for me, I would probably describe this as like fade to black. Like, you know, we get the delicious tension build up, we get the very like very hot like kiss sort of moments, and we get the kind of, I guess, like alluded to afterwards sort of type situation. Is that something that you'll carry on through the series, or is that something that will kind of be like specific to book one and then it will evolve, or how does that work for you as a writer?
It's definitely interesting. Like I come from a very cultural background. So I'm half Romanian, half Sri Lankan. My Romanian side is very Christian, and like I grew up very Christian. And then my Sri Lankan side is just very nosy and like cultural. So like when I was writing this, I was like, how do I like, my Sri Lankan side's very snoopy. Like they'll just find things. They're like personal investigators. Like all my cousins will just like find things. And I'm like, so that's like initially why I don't want to write in my name. And like somehow they still found my Instagram. They found my book talk. They found everything. Are you writing a book? And I was like, and I was like, how do they do this? So like I was very much trying to, I guess, write my book, but sort of keep it semi, it's not PG, but it's not descriptive, for the sake of the fact that like my family was so invested and excited in this first book that like they brought it, they're probably gonna read it, like they've seen snippets of it, and I'm like, oh, like it's that freaks me out, honestly. I'm like, please like leave me alone to just write. But I can't, because so I think definitely going down the track, like I think other book series will probably have more spice, but I think this book will probably stick to that, because like I've already written scenes where like they're definitely having sex, they're definitely getting to that point, but I just haven't described it. I feel like I kind of need to keep that going for the next few books, but maybe like a little bit more spice. We'll see how we go. But
because I've read series like that, especially like in fantasy, right? That it's like, you know, book one might start out that like we barely get a kiss, but then like it obviously like evolves as the characters evolve as well. And I think this is such a like valid point you're bringing up as well, that, you know, it is not always the easiest to write exactly what you want to write when you know you've got the like other people in your immediate life who are, as you say, like incredibly invested in your journey. Like, I mean, it's an incredible thing to have, but at the same time, creatively can be that thing of like, ooh, like, how do I navigate this?
Like, I love that you're supporting me, but like, can you not? My dad's like, can I put it on my Facebook? And I'm like, no, you can't. Like, I'm like, I don't need those, like, your people reading it.
Yeah, it's like, I did not write this book for your friends, trust me.
You're not the target market. So it's definitely hard. Even like the little bits that I have that are like you said, like we build up this spice, like we like, they're not like, it's not like fully it's fade to black. So we get to a point and then we suggest it. And I try to suggest it in like a bit of a fun way, but it's suggested. But like it still gets to that point and they still talk about sex. They talk about doing things, especially Kitana, who's one of like the side characters. She's very vocal. And like, so like there's all those like levels of it. And even that, like I remember putting up like a TikTok with like a little bit. And it wasn't even like, it was me typing. Like it wasn't even like a snippet of the book. And one of my cousins had like paused it and read it just to read what my book was about. And he's like, it's a bit spicy. Like it's a bit watchy. Like, what? You have no idea what is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think your book could almost like, it could fall into pretty, like, it could quite comfortably go into the like young adult type category as well, right? Because it's got that it's got that level that it's like people can kind of determine whether it's like something that they don't have to, I don't know, like if read's the right word, or like, I never really know, but I think the best way I've had it described to me is that you know, there are types of books where the sex is like an integral part of the storyline. You can't skip over it, because there is huge like character development and like progression, and you know, there it is as important to the character growth as it is like all the other stuff that goes on. And that's probably what my books fall into, that it's like you can't skip over it because like it's so integral to what's going on for them. But then there are other books where you can, and that's also like a perfectly like, you know, enjoyable part of that book as well, right? That it's like you can make that choice of like whether you want to or not, but you're not necessarily going to miss anything from the book.
No, I think my books are very much a romance, like more than anything. They're a romance, and like they're building up their romances, and obviously there's like the paranormal supernatural element, and then like the plot that I almost had to like give it a plot, because I was well they can't just be romance, like there needs to be something, but like the romance was like what the foundation of the book is on. So you still get all the romance, you just, and a bit of spice, but like to a level.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also, I think, something that you can like enjoy as well in your author career, that it's like you don't have to come out the gates like writing the craziest thing you're ever going to write, right? Like you can find
myself into it.
Like because it is a real thing to like develop your own voice and develop your own way of writing about things, that you can find your level of like what you are comfortable with at different points in your journey as well, because like with every book it changes and grows and adapts and evolves. And like I look back on something I published like a year ago and I'm like, yeah, I can even see now how like that was completely different to what, if I was to write that book again today, it would look, the story might be the same, or the plot might be the same, or the characters might be the same, but it would show up on the page quite differently now. And that's like the progression, right?
Even now, like, because I had started this book like a year and a half ago, like even now when I finished it, I was like, oh, like I kind of do wish that it had more. Like, I'm like, I wish it was a bit smuttier. I wish it was a bit spicier. But like, also, it's like done now. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like leave it. But I was so worried that people won't like it because it doesn't have that. And I'm like, please just like give it a chance.
Yeah, and I think it's got that delicious like we all know the books we've read where actually the slow burn and the tension and the like the heated glances and things, like that's actually the bit that's got us all like kind of, you know, worked up, right? Yeah. Like, you know, and it's like any of those times that people make memes or reels or whatever about like if they're reading like really like filthy smut in public and they can have like the straightest face ever and just like not even a reaction, and yet you can be reading like something where they've just like brushed hands, or like,
or they're like training.
Yeah, they're training together and he's like got an arm like around her in like a certain position, can like hear, like feel his pulse or something like that, and like that
on top of her.
Yeah. Like, and that's the bit that people can't keep.
Yeah, you're like
nice about.
Literally, yeah.
So I think it is such a great example of the fact that you can write things that are the very like we want to bring a reaction about in our readers, right? And those are often the things, those small moments. Like I'm thinking of even like that example of, say, in was it in Bridgerton, like how I think in the very first season that they've got the little like pinky grays moment when they're standing in the art gallery together or something. Yeah. And it's like, we also have like a whole episode that is basically them just fucking, but like if anything, the pinky grays moment is like the thing that people remember and talk about.
Like, 100%. There's like definitely like a build up of these little moments in Supernova. So like hopefully that keeps people giggling like a little girl.
Yeah, it's definitely got that energy of like just the, you know, will they, won't they kind of energy, and the tension
definitely.
build.
There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of will they, won't they. I love that about it. I'm like always like trying to think of words to describe it as, and like that's one that I've used. I'm like, yeah, like, well, you just don't know, like, will they, won't they?
Yeah, and then I think the way it ends off is, it's going to be really interesting to see like where you do take things in book 2, because there is a lot of moving pieces going on at the end of book 1.
There is. Yep.
So we obviously, I mean, we could obviously keep talking about this all day long, but like, what can you tell us about for future things of like, do you have any kind of, as we're recording this, obviously, timelines in mind around when book 2 might be coming, or anything you can share, any goss you can hand our way?
Well, obviously it's all, I guess, like I said, dependent on how well I get my balance in order.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna be I should be at the book booth indie bookworm event next year. And I think that's like mid-year. So that's gonna be like my first like physical thing, and I'm like so scared.
Exciting.
But like very, very exciting. So my goal is to have book 2 done by then. So by mid next year, but like hopefully earlier. But like that's my like that's my goal. By the time I like do all the art, I'm like, I've got to do the cover for book 2. So
yeah.
by the time I get all that, it should be then. It's so hard because like I have like other ideas as well of like other series and other books I want to write. And I'm like, why did I not just make this a standalone so that I could write other books? But I've committed now. So we're I'm just gonna like try to focus on that. And like, like I was saying, like I had like a random like epiphany the other day in like a non-sleeping, like I should have been sleeping, but I had like a nightmare, woke up and then started writing the intro for another book that's not even in this series. I'm like, why have I done this? But like, that's fine. Popping it away. So yeah, we are focusing on book 2. And so hopefully then like it's a process. By the time I actually finish it and then go through all edits and revisions and then make changes, and so hopefully then.
I have no doubt that it will be delicious, and that it will happen, of course, especially like, as you say, you've given yourself spaciousness, but also like a timeline in mind to go, okay, this is when we're gonna aim for, and having a physical event is always a great example to hold yourself to, because again, it's like having the beautiful books on the table to actually like show people.
It'll be really nice to have both together looking all cute.
They're gonna look amazing. So my love, I just have absolutely adored getting to chat to you, and this has been amazing. Tell everyone, where can they stalk you, where can they find you, where can they follow you, all the things. We want to know it all.
Okay, so I'm on Instagram and TikTok under author J.A. Jude. I think those are like the main places, and then I've got like a bit of art stuff going on. So like I have an Etsy store which I've started, and we're slowly getting running, which was the whole reason I quit my job but then focused on the book stuff. And anyway, we're getting there. I'm hoping to like release bookish merch and like products and stuff, and so that's called Luck or Moxie, and it's all in my links on my Instagram and stuff as well. And this is like one of my little things.
I know, I've been looking at it the whole time, like it's amazing.
This is like the only one I kind of have up at the moment because we're getting there. But like it's all a process. Like you learn how to become an indie author and publish a book, and then I'm like, oh cool, now I need to do all of that for my art stuff. So I don't know, like I said, why do we do this to ourselves? I don't know, but it's the adventure of like forever learning forever learning something new. It's fun kind of. And we'll of course make sure that we'll link everything up in the show notes as well. And this has just been so delicious. Thank you for coming and sharing all about your beautiful world and your creativity, and we can't wait to see how things continue to grow and expand. It's going to be wonderful. Thank you so much, my love. Thank you for having me. I'm honestly so honored. Like it's just like it's been so sweet, like just being picked by someone to come and talk about my book. I'm like, oh, thank you.
It's what we're all about, because we love celebrating everyone, like at wherever we are on the journey, right? Like whether we're at book 1 or we're at book 100, like there are so many parts to it that everyone has got so many like relatable moments from the whole way through. So it's delicious.
I love that you do this. Like, honestly, I love it. Like, keep going.
Thank you, Mama. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Of course, as always, you know where to find us, you know where to follow us, and we can't wait to see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us, as always, for another episode of Successful Witches. You can find us online in all the places at successful.witches. I'm your host, Elliot Rose, and you can find me at Elliot Rose Author on Bookstagram, on Book Talk, and of course we will have linked up all the relevant places you can go and connect with our wonderful indie author on today's episode. You can connect with me, you can find all our books, all in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening. If you love this episode, please remember to like, to subscribe, and to share on social media. We love to see the tags if you've been listening in or watching along. Can't wait to see you on the next episode.